Hey folks, it's Sam Satterwhite, the old man at Satterwhite Log Homes, and this is Thursday, November the 7th, 2019. Veterans Day is right around the corner next Monday, and I want to do a little special presentation about Veterans Day and some things that are very important to me. With me today, I've got my good friend Bill Warren from North Carolina. He is the founder and president of Combat Warriors, Inc. And we'll talk about that a bunch more in just a few minutes. I want to make a declaration that the folks that you deal with at Satterwhite Log Homes, we are all Christians and we're patriots. We love to salute our veterans, and most of our veterans are Christians. And since we have all volunteer military these days, there's no question that they're all patriots. So for this Veterans Day, to our men and women in uniform, past, present, and future, God bless you and thank you. Now, if you want to thank a veteran, the best way to do it is to be the kind of American that is worth fighting for. I think that pretty much says it all. I want to share a few lines that were passed to me by my wonderful cousin Dovey Kufke. She lives up in northern Oklahoma. I only get to see her once or twice a year, but she sends me some email tidbits along. A lot of you may have heard this before, but especially with Veterans Day coming up, I think it's good to hear it again. JFK's Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, was in France in the early 60s when de Gaulle decided to pull out of NATO. De Gaulle said he wanted all U.S. military out of France as soon as possible. Rusk responded, "Does that include those that are buried here?" De Gaulle did not respond. You could have heard a pin drop. When in England at a fairly large conference, Colin Powell was asked by the Archbishop of Canterbury if our plans for Iraq were just an example of empire building by George Bush. He answered by saying, "Over the years, the United States has sent many of its fine young men and women into great peril to fight for freedom beyond our borders. The only amount of land we've ever asked for in return is enough to bury those who did not return." You could have heard a pin drop. There was a conference in France where a number of international engineers were taking part, including French and American diplomats. During a break, one of the French engineers came back into the room saying, "Have you heard the latest dumb stunt Bush has done? He has sent an aircraft carrier to Indonesia to help tsunami victims. What does he intend to do, bomb them?" A Boeing engineer stood up and replied quietly, "Our carriers have 3 hospitals on board that can treat several hundred people. They're nuclear powered, can supply emergency electrical power to shore facilities. They have 3 cafeterias with the capacity to feed 3,000 people 3 meals a day. They can produce several thousand gallons of fresh water from seawater each day, and they carry half a dozen helicopters for use in transporting victims and injured to and from their flight deck. We have 11 such ships. How many does France have?" You could have heard a pin drop. A U.S. Navy admiral was attending a naval conference that included admirals from the U.S., the English, Canadian, Australians, and French at a cocktail reception. He found himself standing with a large group of officers that included personnel from most of those countries. Everyone was chatting away in English as they sipped their drinks when a French admiral suddenly complained that whereas Europeans learn many languages, Americans learn only English. He then asked, "Why is it that we always have to speak English in these conferences rather than speaking French?" Without hesitating, the American admiral replied, "Maybe it's because the Brits, Canadians, Aussies, and Americans arranged it so that you wouldn't have to speak German. You could have heard a pin drop. And this story fits right in with the above. Robert Whiting, an elderly gentleman of 83, arrived in Paris by plane. At French customs, he took a few minutes to locate his passport in his carry-on. "You've been to France before, monsieur?" the customs officer asked, sarcastically. Mr. Whiting admitted he had been to France previously. "Then you should know enough to have your passport ready." The American said, "The last time I was here, I didn't have to show it." Impossible. Americans always have to show their passports on arrival in France. The American senior gave the Frenchman a long, hard look. Then he quietly said, "Well, when I came ashore, excuse me, at Omaha Beach on D-Day 1944 to help liberate this country, I couldn't find a single Frenchman to show the passport to." You could have heard a pin drop. With that, let's thank our veterans like we ought to. Let me turn to my buddy Bill. And I mentioned Bill Warren was the founder and is the president of Combat Warriors, Inc., the parent group in North Carolina. And about 8 or 9 years ago, we spun off another chapter here in East Texas. And now, Bill, I've worked with a number of different charities, but nothing gets to my heart like what we do with Combat Warriors. And I can't thank you enough for that. Tell us a little bit about Combat Warriors.
Combat Warriors, as we say, we started giving donations to special operations soldiers to go to Wisconsin and deer hunt. Well, my partner and I did that 2 or 3 times. And finally, I talked to the guy who was arranging it. I said, "Well, wait a minute. We have duck impoundments in eastern North Carolina, so why don't we just do it here?" And he said, "That's a good idea." So we figured we could get a lot more for our buck if we did it where we were and didn't have to pay airfare and got everybody there. So it was 2010 that we started the first one. We had 5 warriors there. 2 were missing their legs. 1 was completely blown up. He was still getting around, but having a difficult time. And then we had another one that had been wounded and another one that had just returned from Afghanistan. And so we went out duck hunting with them, and all of a sudden, something happened. And the communication started, and the townspeople, where we would go and have lunch, where we had a turkey shoot, all of a sudden, everybody started coming together. The warriors could feel the patriotism that was there. They could feel the respect and the love that the town members had for all of them. So that was the first one. And now we've gone from 1 event, 1 chapter, and 5 warriors to over 5 chapters, over 500 warriors attending with over 50 events. And that's with all volunteers. We don't get paid. You know, some organizations get paid and they have all these big to-dos, I would call them, and they spend lots of money doing things of that nature, but we don't. We just give them a solid event where they can come and be relaxed and know that people love them and respect them. And they don't get that a lot in some places these days.
What's the therapy value of these events, Bill?
Well, you know, what we do is different. And I've been told this by a lot of the warriors who come to our events, in that we don't push them. When they come to our events, we give them an itinerary just like they're drawing up a battle plan to go to battle. And they know where they have to be, when they have to be there, and what they have to do while they're there. So they absolutely just feel comfortable. And the environment is such, because we're bringing like kind and quality of warriors together, that they can actually do self-therapy by talking to each other.
Yeah.
Now, every now and then you will find out, like I have a lot of friends because I've been doing this for over 10 years in the military. And a lot of them have developed a trust in me where if they have a problem, they can come talk to me because of all the friendships that have been developed. And other of our volunteers have the same thing. You take the Texas volunteers, Richard Ray and you guys, they'll come up and talk to you if they're ready. But we never ask them, about their service.
Yeah. Since we got involved, which I happen to be on the board and have been of the Texas branch since our inception, like I say, I think ours must have been 8 years ago. This is our 8th year, 8th.
It's either 7
deer
or 8.
hunt.
It's either 7 or 8. I can't remember.
At any rate, we have a number of events every year, and if you don't mind, I'm going to show you just a little bit.
Yeah.
This is from one of our deer hunts in the past. An unbelievable amount of camaraderie between all of our volunteers and these guys that that have given so much. Excuse me. I'm getting over a bad cold and I'm awfully hoarse. But we have events every month out of our Texas chapter. Right now we're having our big deer hunt, which that's about all I can discuss about that. But we've got some very, very special people that are going to be there. Here we got a big tent set up for a dinner we're having. We'll have a big auction with our warriors and other folks from the community are there, which, like Bill said, the community support for this is something beyond phenomenal. And we have people literally beating our doors down, wanting to help in some way. And it's a shame we can't use everybody's talents to help these men and women that we're trying to serve. We have an awful lot of fun. We have different churches, different groups, different individuals that insist on coming and feeding these guys and their guides and our support staff. But lots and lots and lots of things going on here. And well, I mentioned I've been involved in a lot of different charities, but maybe this is the most gratifying thing I've ever done because I get direct thank yous from these guys that have given so much, but are so grateful for what little show of patriotism and thanks that we give them. We have events, as I mentioned, every month. We have fishing trips, different types of hunting trips, not just this big deer hunting event that we're having right now. And what do y'all do in North Carolina for different events, Bill?
We'll have everything from hunting events, fishing events, skeet shooting, pheasant throws. We'll have family events.
Wait a minute. What's a pheasant throw?
A pheasant throw is we get out and let them have a good time with their children. And there we bring in inflatables and they jump up and down. They have a wonderful time. The wives are out there, doing things, and the children are being entertained. And then we have what's called a pheasant throw. And that is you take and throw pheasants out of a tower instead of having to go hunt these things. And because some of these guys can't, they're in wheelchairs.
Sure.
We have guys, actually hunting pheasant from a wheelchair. And that's how we have to do it. But it's a family outing, and you can see, and these guys will come up to you, and the wives will come up to you and say, thank you for including us.
Yeah.
because, these guys go on a lot of trips all over. But they need to be with their families because they're deployed so many times. It's not like a 1, 2, 3 deployment. You can find guys that have been in the military 16, 17 years, have been deployed in double figures.
Yeah.
So they're giving their heart and soul to us. And it's just what we can do to partially repay that effort. And not only are the warriors giving it up, but the families are. And that's what you have to do. You not only help the warriors, you help those families. And it's just pleasing to see the results when that comes together.
All right, now your events, just like ours here, you have a lot that are still active duty. Mm-hmm. You have some that are recently retired, and then you will take veterans from all the way back to World War II on trips. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's great. That's great.
We just absolutely, I would say that 70% of our participants, the warriors that participate in our events, are active duty.
Okay.
We have guys getting off airplanes coming to our events. I had one calling, said, listen, I can go do this. Is it okay? And her reply was, you've been gone for 6 months, another couple of days, it's not going to matter. So it was just a good thing to hear that and to see them come back in and relax and just get with their friends and their buddies and get with the volunteers. Our volunteers are incredible. And those volunteers reach out and talk. And so you have a great interaction between members in the community, volunteers, and the warriors that come.
Bill, of course, you've been here. Well, you've been to all of our November deer hunts,
yes.
I believe. Mm-hmm. And you recall, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we had one very special guy who was quadriplegic. Mm-hmm. Browning Arms was nice enough to provide a device that would hold a rifle for him in front of him. And with just small head movements, he could aim and just blowing in a tube very slightly, he could fire the weapon. And he got the biggest buck that year. Yeah. Now, I think that was a little set up maybe, but that made his year.
Oh yeah, he was very happy to get that, and it was very rewarding to watch that smile on his face as he got the biggest buck that year. I believe it was the biggest. If it wasn't, it was close. But I laugh at the first time we came to Texas. We had a successful thing going in North Carolina, and Jordan Alexander came up to me and said, Bill, I'd like to give back. I want to do something in my hometown. I said, where's that? He said, Longview, Texas. I said, okay. I said, I tell you what, we'll support you, we'll back you for the first time, but we've got to go out there and sell this thing. And Jordan said, yeah, we do. So he arranged a meeting, and I forget where it was.
Let me interrupt you. It was right here, but Jordan's dad was a salesman for me for 20-something years.
Exactly.
One of my best buddies, Larry Bennett, and he has been dead in the middle of this
since day
with
one.
The rest of us since day one. And because of having watched Jordan grow up from a small child just down the road from right here, and being so close to his dad and mom, it was a natural when he came back and wanted to pitch Combat Warriors to us.
And he did a good job.
He did a good job, and you did a wonderful job.
Well, it tickled me because I think you'll remember I told him, I said, guys, once you do this, you're not going to be able to stop. Well, I heard a little few chuckles out there and smiles were breaking out. And I said, yep, they're hooked. I said, just wait till one time. We had that first event, and the people of Longview, Sam and Larry and Diane and Kyle, I don't want to leave anybody out. They just got behind this thing it was going to be a success because of the heart that was put into it from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. We're tickled. Old Richard Ray has been the president of our organization from the first time we elected officers, I guess, and has done a wonderful job for us. There's just too many volunteer folks that work their heart out for this. I shouldn't have brought any names up because we are leaving out a bunch of good folks, but our community gets totally behind it. The schools get behind it. The children. I'll tell you what. If I can, I want to show you one or two of these. Look at that.
Yep.
Isn't that neat? That's posters that little kids gave to us for these guys. That may be part of the same thing. There was another particular I wanted to show, but you know, we have such a good time and such a huge show of patriotism and support for our military. I can't say enough good things about it, Bill. You've helped us by allowing us to help them a bunch.
You know, it's so important because this event has really touched the hearts of a lot of people. We have a lot of warriors that want to come back and not hunt or do anything except help out.
Yeah.
And what you do and what you see, we have these guys that are the best of the best. I mean, we have everybody. We have Marines, we have Air Force, we have Army, we have everybody in the service. And I know I left a branch out, and I'm going to hear from it, the Navy, of course.
You better.
And the Coast Guard. We have people from every walks of our military, and they're the best of the best. And they just enjoy being in an atmosphere like this. And I can't say enough about volunteers. This whole thing is made up of volunteers, and those volunteers make it happen. People who, you know, I'm supposedly the president and founder. I couldn't make this happen without the volunteers. It just wouldn't do. So we cannot thank volunteers enough, and the people who donate funds to us that help us raise the money to hold these events and do things for these warriors.
Yeah. And you know, it's bad to have to mention the money, but we have to have it to operate.
Yep.
Danny just put up our logo there, but sacrifice, honor, and courage.
Yep.
That says a lot.
It says it all.
Now, all right, you can go to Combat Warriors. This is Bill's headquarters in North Carolina. You can go to Combat Warriors and can donate there, or then you could also go to our website. Danny, do you have it also? And have a Facebook page, Combat Warriors Inc., Texas. But I'd like for you to follow us. I'd like for you to get involved. And you know, the purpose of this broadcast today is not to pat ourselves on the back by any means. We avoid that at almost at all costs. But it's to bring attention to the good that is being done for these folks that deserve it so much. Anything you want to wrap up with, Bill?
Well, I just think that, you know, we've been in battle for a long time. Our military has just done things that you just will not believe they could do with the having to be deployed over and over and over again. They're an all-volunteer army. They love this country, and they give up their lives for this country and you, not just the country. They'll give up their lives for you just because of the patriotism and how they want to defend this way of life. They're the wolves, or excuse me, they're the sheepdogs that keep the wolves away from the sheep. And they're willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to do that.
Yeah. Bill Warren, thanks for being with me.
Thank you, Sam.
I love you.
appreciate it. I love you too.